when we went into detail, we realized that these guys are also supplying raw materials used in the missiles in the current Russian-Ukrainian war.
We visited the plant where one of the most famous cars of our generation, Nissan GTR.
And it's just beautiful to see how Japan just treasured its pop culture for like this long.
Konnichiwa o genki desu ka? Welcome everyone to our roundtable where we will discuss our global immersion program to Japan. I am joined by my friends today, Kavin Shah, Simran Mehra, Aniket Singh Basain, Veer Mehta, and of course myself, Utkarsh Singh Jadeja, as your host. Over the next hour, we're going to be discussing about our stories, insights, and reflections from cultural immersions, company visits, and fun incidents. So let us start off by what really drove us to apply to visit Japan. Because, my personal reason was Japan is my dream company of sorts. Growing up watching Japanese cartoons like Doraemon, Shinchan, Obachama, and the other sorts, I've always wanted to visit the country that made such cultural icons. So let's get on with you guys. What was your opinion before?
So, to be very honest, it was the same sort of curiosity which you had, but on a consumer level. So, my family lived in Indonesia for the past 40 years. And a few years back, when they shifted to Gujarat, we saw that everything we got from Japan, whether it be the TVs, the refrigerators, those small handy tools which you get, it outlasted everything else. Everything else. And that drove my curiosity to the point that what is it in this nation that every service or product which they are giving out stands out from the rest. Hence, I was like, I want to go to Japan. And so I did.
Lovely. What do you, Mr. Basain?
Adding on to what we said, I would definitely agree the things made in Japan are absolutely amazing. Plus, they last long. And something apart from the products, I would say the culture in itself is like, I really admire a lot. So that was something I really wanted to learn by interacting with people and going over there and talking to more and more people. It gives you a different aspect as per se, as a different human in a different country. It gives you a lot of things to learn. So definitely that was something I really learned from Japan.
I absolutely agree with you on that. What can I say about Japan? It was so same and yet so different. Same in the sense they hold their heritage and culture very close, and different in the sense at how very differently they're taking technology and business forward. All right. I've been meaning to ask you, the selection process for applying to the GIP was quite competitive, I've heard, because, there were quite a few applicants. And I just want to know what was your thought process throughout the application?
The application was pretty straightforward. It asked you about your interests and why you're really keen on coming. But the interview part was a bit tricky, right? Because how can you convey your passion for a country, for a nation, just from a 10-minute conversation? But luckily for me, I'd already been on a very similar program like this, but to Singapore. So I just, spoke about that and tried to relate both of them together.
So the interview process was very challenging and tricky. And especially in my interview, they asked me a bunch of tricky questions about the culture of Japan. And that was one of the answers I honestly did not know. So then I told her what I knew about the country and why I really wanted to visit the country. And then she realized that, okay, there are things she knows and things she also doesn't know. So it was like a perfect blend of like the things I know and I want to experience and explore there already. And what I don't know, where I can go there and learn about it.
Absolutely. And in fact, I remember you asking quite a lot of questions during our company visits back in Japan. And speaking of company visits, let's move on towards the professional sector of things. How was your experience when it came to visiting conglomerates like Rakuten, which had 70 plus subsidiaries? It's loosely called the Amazon of Japan, I believe. Correct. And yet it invests itself in so many different sectors of business, right? From streaming platforms to sports to internet and, 70 plus are the subsidiaries, as I just mentioned. Yeah. So there's a crazy amount of companies in place there. And there we also visited Nissan and their automated plant back in Tokyo, and also Daikin, which is a leading manufacturer for air conditioners. So I want to ask you guys, how was your experience visiting these companies?
I'd like to talk about Daikin. So basically, Daikin, as all of us know, is a company which sells ACs, air conditioners. But when we went into detail, we realized that these guys are also supplying raw materials used in the missiles in the current Russian-Ukrainian war. So what these folks have done is they have basically commercialized every raw material which is being used in the production of their ACs. So if they do not sell a particular quantity, they can use the raw materials for that AC or the components of that AC in other product lines such as paints, chemicals, fabric coatings, different sensors, and many different things.
So to add on to what he said about Daikin, we were the first ever student cohort, Masters Union as a whole, to go and visit Daikin Headquarters and their flagship store in Osaka.
Not for Daikin though, because I think Rakuten stood out the most for me. As you said, it's kind of referred to as the Amazon of Japan. I think it's not just Amazon. I think it's Amazon and Reliance all combined together, like a very, very crazy mix of both of these companies together, like the strengths combined. Like as you said, like they've put their hands in every industry you can imagine. And the craziest part is they're able to manage everything just so seamlessly. Like you look over there, you go to Japan, everything is so organized. They have separate teams, they have separate sectors, different leads. Like it's just beautiful.
To add to that, Rakuten had a very interesting business model. We asked them that how can you be such a big company even though you're invested in so many different businesses? And they openly said that they buy a business, they try their best to make that business profitable and successful. And if it doesn't work out, they close it immediately. So there's that level of flexibility, adaptability, and cooperation between different teams that they are able to quickly take up projects, subsidiaries, and quickly drop them. And that's what has kept them alive.
You know, people like us, mostly the boys, we're mostly concentrated on the automobile industry of things, right? So how can we leave Nissan outside the discussion? Anything that you'd like to speak about?
Definitely, we cannot leave Nissan aside because we visited the plant where one of the most famous cars of our generation, Nissan GTR. We cannot, imagine how it was manufacturing right in front of our eyes. From the manufacturing parts to the final car, the complete transformation, how it takes, we completely, were mesmerized how it all happened in front of our eyes, and how people over there, the employees, how AI and tech, all of them came together to build such a huge and great and fast machine like Nissan GTR. So definitely that was something I would definitely like to mention, going to a Nissan GTR plant and closely watching people out there.
Absolutely. And I remember having this talk with Veer Mehta a couple of hours earlier. And, you pointed out about how they've automated their entire factory and yet they've managed to still not lay off their employees. So could you kind of like build upon that?
So what they did is that instead of laying off employees and instead of completely replacing their manpower with artificial intelligence and tech-related tools, they went on a model where they would keep the strength of the workforce at its original levels, and instead they would equip these workers with AI and technology so that the productivity and efficiency per employee would increase. That on a larger level would benefit the government as employment levels would remain stable, the people of course as their jobs would not go anywhere, and the company too because the productivity would be increased. And this synchronization and harmony was quite insightful and good to see. Quite impressive, I'd say.
It's quite commendable, no? Like how they managed to keep the workforce intact.
And the fact that people who worked in that specific company, they don't apply to any other company. They work with that company
Very loyal.
for that entire lifetime.
50 years in one company.
That is really
And one of the bosses, or I would say the manager, told us one of the key insights to make them stay in the company's bonuses. If you join another company, you might not get that much of a salary an employee gets after an year, like the bonuses. So that is the major motivation I would say Indian companies should also inculcate in their companies, to give bonuses to their employees to keep the environment very happy and happening.
Absolutely.
So it would give you a kind of a pleasure plus the kind of a vibe you want to set in an environment to let your workforce stay happy at peace.
Absolutely.
When you're saying it's about the bonuses, right? For like a workforce or like an employee to stay back for a longer period of time, it's also how the environment of the office is. So all the offices we visited, Rakuten, Nissan, Daikin, all of them had lovely offices, factories, like very, very big, good workforce for their employees. That's probably another reason that keeps them motivated and happy to work efficiently as well.
To add to that, I think they obviously had a certain hierarchy between the employees and everything, but they were very transparent when it came to communicating with each other. For example, if an entry-level employee has an issue, he can directly go towards the CEO's office and address him directly. Does not matter if it's a small problem at work. Like the barriers in communication were quite less, so it just created a very reliable and transparent environment over there. I think that benefits a lot and adds to why they're so far ahead comparatively.
One of the few aspects that makes Japan Japan. Just communication. Right. So moving on to the cultural immersion. As I said, Japan was my dream country, and walking through the streets that you once saw on television and engaging in conversations with people in their traditional outfits, it was like a totally mind-blowing experience for me. It was a dream come true. So we visited the Asakusa Shrine, the Sensoji Temple, TeamLab planets at Tokyo. We also visited the Torii Gates back in Kyoto and the Osaka Castle in Osaka as well. So I want to know from you guys, what was the most memorable experience?
So I'm pretty sure my friends here will have a lot to talk about the places we went to. But if I'm talking about the culture in specific, there's one thing which stood out for me from the moment we landed, from when we left the country. And that was the simple cultural gesture of the Japanese people, bowing down when you meet them, when you greet them. That whole gesture of respect, that it signified a lot. Even though no words are exchanged, there is no communication taking place, it kind of changed how we looked at people, how we looked at different experiences.
It was not just about the big things we saw, right? Not the temple or the aquarium. It was even the smallest of smallest things. For example, I remember from the airport, we went to the supermarket to get all of us dinner, and then we just saw Dora cakes everywhere. Everyone got so excited. So
Yeah, no, that's like bang on. Like the small things, like example, this might be a little unconventional, but I'm like the biggest Pokemon fan, like the biggest. When you're walking across the street and you look at these Pokemon centers, and just stepping foot inside them is like a dream come true, like an absolute dream come true. What's amazing is that you see everybody over there. You see 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 70-year-olds. And it's just beautiful to see how Japan just treasured its pop culture for like this long.
Absolutely. And I'd like to build up on your Pokemon experience as well. But I suppose I'll bring it up at a later time. Over to you, Mr. Visain.
I mean, definitely the places were quite a bit, one of an experience one should have. I mean, after traveling to all the places, whether it be walking, metro, whatever, I was finally tired and I really need to relax. I mean, mentally also and physically also. And then we went to TeamLab planets. And that was something which was very soothing, very relaxing, and something I really needed. And most of us, I guess, because, the live art, the jumping, all the balloons over there, the lightings. And after all, we slept in one of the floors and the live art was going on. Also, the fishes in the
room with the sofa, the big one, just sticking to the.
And we were all playing hide and seek and something or the other. So TeamLab plans, I would always recommend if you're traveling to Japan. So that was very relaxing.
it was like a good blend of having fun, but also exploring a lot of the culture of Japan.
It's so weird. Like all of your senses are heightened because you're experiencing something different for the first time. But at the same time, you're so relaxed. Like you couldn't care less about the world. Like when you're in that room.
That's well explained. I mean, more than that, also the traditional landmarks which you have in Japan, right? The Shibuya crossing, which you've always seen in the movies, Sensoji Temple, the ancient Japanese architecture and infrastructure, the old temples, the culture, the heritage, those huge bells, those huge gates, all of that was just mesmerizing. And if there was something which we learned from this entire cultural immersion, it was the humility of the people, no matter which city we were from, no matter if we met a CXO or a normal person or a room cleaner, they would all have the decency to always bow down as a sign of greeting you. That courtesy, that humility. And that just simply changed how we looked at our entire experience. I mean, walking out of your room in the morning after having breakfast and people respecting you and greeting you like that, and you also embodying it in yourself, that's just great.
To his point, if you might have observed, even in the metro station, people were making proper line, people were following each everything. Even you might have observed
In the elevators, you were always on the left-hand side. Yeah.
that was something in other places you would find a lot of crowd and all, you get a lot of hustle bustle. But in Japan, it was also organized and the people following the rules, which was something I would definitely learn from their culture.
Absolutely. And another point that you just brought up, which I found quite interesting back in Japan, building up on your point, is that everyone values each other's time. So if anyone's in a rush at the metro stations or at the malls or any other shopping complex, they make two compartments in the escalator of sorts. One part will be where everyone is going to be standing on the escalator, and they free up the other section so that people in a hurry can, jog up or walk up.
And it's an unsaid rule. Like there's no signboard saying it. There's no one enforcing it. No guard, no police officer, nothing. Yeah.
And that was organized chaos.
No, and I do think the punctuality is something they follow a lot in Japan, because when we went to any of the company visits, we obviously had presentations from like CEOs, CXOs there, and it always started on time, ended on time. And I will remember like a bunch of mornings we'd obviously be late to like go for company visits. We would go down to the bus stop and be like, I'm not waiting for another minute because you're so punctual.
It's like if you're called at 8 o'clock and you arrive at 8, you're pretty late.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be there by 7:45 or...
Yeah.
Absolutely agree on the punctuality part because, as you pointed out, in Japan, if you're on time, you're already late. You're supposed to be 5 minutes before time.
Someone did say that in one of our meetings.
It must have been Dr. Sibi George, Ambassador of India to Tokyo. Absolutely. And I learned that lesson the hard way because, and this is something I've been saving for the discussion regarding the fun segment. What happened was, I, with my friend Atar Vyas, we were browsing the section at one of the Pokemon centers. And we were supposed to board a bus to the Kyoto Innovation Center just 5 minutes after. And, us boys being boys, we thought we had plenty of time. And it was only when we reached the bus stop that we realized that the rest of the 30 students are already on their way. And funnily, we were just 32 seconds late. I was actually checking the time on the phone. We were just 32 seconds late, and we had already missed the bus by then. And what followed was a 3.5 kilometer jog in a foreign country. And Athar and I, we reached the venue huffing and puffing and completely covered in sweat. What are some funny experiences that you'd like to share?
I mean, this was that the first few days where, you go to any bus stop, you go to any metro station as well, you just look at the words and you just laugh. Because you can't understand. You can't even guess what these words will actually mean. Like, and then
we would also see people go on the left of the escalator and start laughing, like, bro, what's going on?
We could understand some rules because they were pretty evident, like the escalator rule as you mentioned. But like, if you pick up a cup of coffee, you would understand it's coffee because it's just labeled differently. The graphics on the bottle are completely different to what the Indian consumers are used to. So it was a bit funny, right? But at the end of the day, we all just sat in this one guy's room, all of us, the seniors and the juniors, one together, and just laugh at how we mispronounced all the words there. I think that was the best part, and I genuinely still miss those nights a bit. Maybe a bit too much.
Thepla nights, because, as was the problem with a lot of our vegetarian friends, is that we didn't have restaurants that would offer vegan food. So at the end of our tours, I remember us sitting in a single room, 20, 25 of us, having theplas
Gujaratis came to the rescue.
The Gujaratis came to the rescue. Let's go, Guju gang. And what about you, Aniket? Anything that you'd like to share?
I mean, I don't know whether it's a funny incident or not. So I went in one of the shopping malls, and in one of the shops I went, and I was just looking at the clothes, the material, everything. And the lady, the shop owner, came to me and asked, "Where are you from?" Then she knows English. I was like, "I'm from India." Then she all of a sudden she said, "Aap kaise ho?" And I was like, "How does she know Hindi now?" I mean, how do you know Hindi? So then I got to know that she came to India twice or thrice, and she used to, buy something from India, materials and all, the clothing materials.
Yeah.
And then she used to import to Japan, and all of a sudden I was like, "What is your name?" And she told me, "I don't remember her name because Japanese. How good we are in Japanese." So those one was one of the funny incidents, and I still remember her face. I could imagine, and I could also imagine my face when she said, "Aap kaise ho?" Sorry, that was funny thing.
To add on to that, I think Kavan and I had also gone to this one alley where there was this nice shop. We met this really cool person, man.
I think it was Roshua and Lawrence.
Yeah, something like that. We met a really cool person.
What a guy. What a guy.
Everything was fun for me because, okay, if I'm going to describe it from the ground up, it just felt like a foreign utopian society, right? Like the moment you walk out of the hotel, you have these large storied buildings which you don't see here in India, right? You have these 50, 60 storied buildings. You have all sorts of luxury cars. I mean, the guys and the girls would also agree with me that we saw all sorts of luxury cars out there. Apart from that, one of the fun experiences was when we were using the metro to get to a place which was just 10 minutes away, because we just wanted to experience the metro for the sake of it. Okay, we haven't seen those clean, large metro stations and that whole thing. So what happened was that on Google Maps, it showed that that place is 5 minutes away. But when we entered the metro station, and in the 5th day, we had that sense of confidence कि हमें इतना सा Japanese आता ही है. Okay. So we went inside, we booked the tickets, and we reached that place just 3.5 hours later. So yeah, I mean, the smart ones.
No one ever needed to wonder what could go wrong.
So I mean, the metro ride was interesting.
To talk about metro stations, so when we go to a station, there'd be 2 lines, right? Yeah. So a bunch of times, we would just take one, and then we don't know which side it will go because we don't understand the language. Yeah. We would just take it and then go to the station, like the next stop, and then just run to the other one because that would go the right direction. Because we wouldn't understand, So we used to jump trains.
It was kind of like trial and error.
Exactly.
It's like it's constant state of maths. And I find it quite funny that you took a 5-minute metro ride and you managed to turn it into a 3-hour ride, because if I remember this correctly, when we boarded the Shinkansen, right? Yeah. Absolutely, we took the same amount of time to traverse to an entirely new region. So I'm quite bamboozled, if you ask me. Right. So as we near to as we begin to wrap up our roundtable for this evening, I want to, talk about what are some reflections you're taking away from this entire experience.
So, I mean, one thing which I learned as a person was that if I want to do something and if I want to grow, my circumstances do not matter. And that is something which comes out from the story of Japan itself, right? Japan was a country which after World War II had no human resources. Their entire youth population was diminished in the war, the deadly war which happened. They had a scarcity of natural resources. They had a bad reputation in terms of foreign relations. And yet they built a nation which is so great, which has impacted and contributed so much to this world. And it has left landmark legacy companies which are still creating employment and a change in people's lives without having any of the premises or any of the right circumstances. So that is just inspiring for me. And that is something which I'd say I learned deeply.
It's exactly like the survival of the fittest, agenda, like the world learned. So, I mean, I think it's mainly due to the way they've adapted to the situation and the circumstances without having, even when the odds are against them. If you look at labor and real estate to this day, it's very expensive in Japan. Very, very expensive. So they've just taken advantage of the technology and automation they already have over there. I mean, the Japanese are completely obsessed with automating everything, right? So you look at vending machines. You will find vending machines everywhere. The ratio of vending machines to humans is, I think, for every 23 Japanese people, there's one vending machine. It's astounding levels.
If you ask me to wrap up my experience in probably 2 words, it's very simple. It's adaptability and resilience, right? Because when it comes to adaptability, it was like a whole new experience for us, a whole new culture, language barriers, and resilience. Because when we went there, we visited all these factories. You see all these employees, right? You're so hardworking, so dedicated, and very punctual. So just to live that lifestyle, just to bring up the company, everything as a whole, you learn from them. And then personally, I grew a lot through those 10 days, because living alone in a whole foreign country, navigating away from A to point B, was an insane experience, and I'm very grateful I got to go for it.
Absolutely agree with you. And would you like to add something to that?
I would definitely like to add something to them. Japan has a lot to teach us, and definitely values, tradition, culture, and how the employees work really hard was something I would really inculcate in myself also. But I really wanted to, after spending, good amount of time in Japan, I really wanted to go again. I really want to go again and, work over there and spend some time in Japan. So I really admire Japanese people a lot. And I asked Julian, one of the people I met over there, he is working in a chemical industry right now. He's a CEO. A CEO, exactly. And he started his job in the US after his university placement. So he told me, if you want to come to Japan, then you don't need to teach anyone anything. What you need to do is bring some new technology which already exists in India and, present them in Japanese way. Because we talk about how Japan is, a really huge tech country, but people take a lot of time to adapt to technology over there. But once they do, they stick to that. So, I mean, such as Zomato or Swiggy, we don't have there in Japan. Or even if we do have, they will take a lot of time. Like, you see, online pay.
So it's online payments. We suffer a lot with, not having.
Use the points. We used paper notes instead of that.
They do prefer cash over credit. That's why vending machines, again, very popular over there.
Right.
So that's why even the current denominations over there are much greater than what we have here in India.
Right. So, I mean, Zepto and Blinkit is something I would definitely like to build in Japan.
Absolutely.
Be the founders at young age.
Conversely, Japan has managed to, transform very simple and very redundant tasks quite easily. Like, for example, labor and real estate is quite expensive over there, right? So what they've done is basically they've replaced humans who work at a work desk at these corner shops. They just replaced them with vending machines everywhere. Like, you go to any street, you'll find a vending machine over there. Like, you find them in the smallest alleyways. You find them next to the shrines. You find them everywhere over there, and it's just crazy to me.
How they managed to incorporate technology into culture and tradition, and how they've just managed to synchronize not only the tangible, but also the intangible, be it, human emotions, be it respect, be it any aspect that you think of regarding, mentality or social norms. I believe top to bottom, they've got everything just figured out. I believe, although technology is what is their forte is, it's kind of how they really implement that technology in their day-to-day life. And so my takeaway from, all these 70-story buildings, or, the countless vending machines, or, the complex metro systems, or, as you said, all the fancy cars, the luxury cars. I take away from Japan is a country that holds everyone together in a sense of discipline, and at the same time, mutual respect towards goals that are definite and achievable. And that, I think that is what really separates them. So I guess that's it from our side. Arigato gozaimasu for tuning in. And our entire experience was not simply a trip to a foreign country. It was more of a learning curve. And I'd like to say it contributed a lot to our character developments as well.
100%.
And at Masters Union, we're hungry for more, eager for our next trip to more such countries. And I'd just like to end with a quote that the Japanese believe in. The Japanese believe that better than 1,000 days of studying is one day with a good teacher. And I'd say Japan has been that good teacher for us. So, to the audience, keep discovering, keep exploring, keep learning by doing. Signing off, sayonara tomodachi.